OIG guests in. And Steve, could you give Veronica a moment just to read the CO role again? I neglected to.
We're live. We're live, by the way.
Thank you.
Committee on Oversight members, please stay here when I call your name. Steve Willard,
Here.
Stephen Lee,
I'm here.
Roger Beachy,
Here.
Vicki Chandler, Scott Stanley,
Here.
Kayvon Stassen,
Here.
Wanda Ward.
Here.
Thank you. Back over to you, Steve.
Thank you. Today's open agenda consists of a presentation by the Inspector General and Assistant Inspector General for Audits regarding the fiscal year 2024 annual audit plan and highlights from the Chief Financial Officer of the most recent CFO report. Presenting today are Inspector General Allison Lerner and Assistant Inspector General for Audits Teresa Hull. If you have a clarifying question, please ask it during the presentation. For other questions, please wait until the end of the presentation. A copy of the fiscal year 2024 annual audit plan and the presentation slides are in the CO board book in Diligent. Allison, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Steve. Sorry, I had a moment there, a challenge unmuting myself. So I'm just going to speak for a moment. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Teresa Hull, who is our new Assistant Inspector General for Audits. She joined us on September 11th of this year, replacing Mark Bell, who has moved on to the wonderful world of retirement, and coming to us from the Department of Defense OIG. Prior to that, she's also served at the OIGs at the Department of Justice and the National Geospatial Agency. In 2018, she became a member of the Senior Executive Service, leading the Audit Directorate at DoD OIG, responsible for audits of major weapons systems acquisitions, contracts, weapons system sustainment, military healthcare, and congressional interest audits that resulted in several hearings. She's a graduate of Virginia Tech and has degrees in both accounting and information services and English professional writing. She has been unanimously praised by her colleagues and supervisors for her ability to remain calm and constructive when under pressure, including testifying before Congress, for her energetic, inquisitive spirit and deep intellect, and her ability to build and maintain strong collaborative relationships within the OIG and across the agency. These skills, coupled with her outstanding audit expertise, made me confident that she was the right choice for our office. And every day that she's been here since September 11th has just reaffirmed my belief that she's the right person for us at this time. So I'm going to turn the floor over to her to walk you through our 2024 audit plan. The ball is all yours, Teresa.
Thank you, Allison. And I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to brief you this afternoon on our FY24 audit plan. And Kelly, if you could advance the slide, please. We issued our FY24 audit plan on October 30th, and the plan details both our statutorily mandated projects as well as our ongoing and planned discretionary projects. And our projects focus internally on NSF management and programs for us to be able to identify ways to improve systems and operations, and externally on how award recipients such as institutions and researchers use NSF funds through cooperative agreements, grants to universities and other institutions. I want to mention that our audit plan work, while it details the statutorily mandated and those projects that we've identified as our discretionary projects for this fiscal year, we may change the plan to address any higher priority issues that arise or in response to requests from Congress or any of our other stakeholders. Next slide, please. I wanted to briefly touch upon our statutorily mandated projects. Those include the financial statement audits, our FSMA audit. The last project on this slide, I just wanted to mention, we're currently monitoring guidance associated with the Enhanced Personnel Security Program, and pending publication of any applicable guidance, we may initiate work on that particular area. Next slide, please. Our ongoing discretionary projects, before I speak to those, I wanted to touch upon some of the factors that we consider when we determine which projects to initiate. A lot of our work comes out of risk assessments. So what we do is we look at awardees against some different data points that we have in cooperation with our data analytics team. And we determine which awardees score highest on such risk assessments. We also look at our NSF Major Management Challenges document. This document is issued by our office on an annual basis, and it touches upon the hard-hitting and larger areas of concern that we identify for NSF management. So we ensure that our audit plan touches upon those areas so that we can provide our independent lens for improvement. We also consider the overall impact to the taxpayer. We look at whether there's opportunities to test for fraud, waste, and abuse. And we always incorporate any suggestions, and we consider some suggestions from both National Science Board and NSF. And we have historically received some different requests for work that we've had an opportunity to look at and incorporate into our plan. To touch on a few of our ongoing discretionary projects, I will say that all of these are at various stages. But one that I'll mention is our Industry University Cooperative Research Centers project. So the IUCRCs, as of June 2023, NSF had 264 active IUCRC awards. And for 2024, NSF requested $21.9 million for the program. We currently have audits ongoing at 5 universities in this IUCRC. And we plan to issue a capstone report that would summarize any common findings or promising practices that we could provide NSF for future improvements to the program. We also have an inspection ongoing right now for USAP occupational health and safety concerns. We just had a team that returned from the ICE. They went at the end of October to assess food safety, fire safety, and waste management. And that team is currently finishing its analysis and working towards a report. Next slide, please. I've pictured here some of the areas of focus for our planned projects, which, like our ongoing projects, align with the management challenges document, and were selected using the factors that I just described. So the first area that we have planned work in is the NSF Engines program. Given that it's the flagship of NSF's new Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships Directorate, we understand the goal of the Engines program is to promote economic growth in regions that have not fully participated in past technological development. But notably, the CHIPS Act also gave NSF authority to use some new types of instruments to fund awards. So not just grants and cooperative agreements, but other transaction agreements, which are riskier because they're not subject to federal acquisition regulation or uniform guidance. So that is an area that we will look into in this fiscal year. We also plan to address or initiate some work on research security. We may audit NSF's and award recipients' compliance with research security requirements. Now, if these institutions have not enacted policies, there's a heightened risk to research security. So our audit may evaluate NSF's implementation of the policies and or award recipient compliance with other associated requirements. We'll also take a look at oversight in advancing STEM education and broadening participation. We may audit NSF and institutional recipients' oversight of teaching requirements for the recipients of scholarships, stipends, and fellowships associated with the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program. And that program provides funding to institutions of higher education to recruit STEM majors and professionals to become K-12 teachers in higher need school districts. Our audit would then assess NSF's and institutions' oversight of recipients' compliance with such teaching commitments. During fiscal year 24, we also plan to take a look at cybersecurity and protecting information. Associated with that, we may audit NSF's compliance with zero trust cybersecurity principles, and we may audit NSF's cloud security controls. We may also look at NSF's compliance with controlled unclassified information or CUI requirements. This fiscal year, we will also audit and continue to audit our NSF award recipients and review quality of single audits. And the last project that I want to mention that we have on our plan is an audit of NSF's management and oversight of the Centers program. Acknowledging that NSF supports a variety of Centers programs that contribute to the Foundation's mission and vision, the Centers are a principal means by which NSF fosters that interdisciplinary research. So we plan to audit and assess whether NSF's management and oversight of the significant program portfolio. Next slide, please. Additionally, we have some areas that we plan to monitor during the year. This goes to my comment earlier that our plan is subject to change, but there are times where priorities need to be shifted. So we have identified 3 areas that we are gonna monitor this fiscal year. The first is the NSF's management of the TIP Directorate, and the CHIPS and Science Act increased its annual budget, the Directorate's budget, to $4.1 billion by FY 2027. During this fiscal year, we're going to monitor the Directorate as it addresses the practical, logistical, personnel developments and challenges of establishing a new Directorate, whether it's creating controls and how it's managing its developing portfolio. Another area that we will be monitoring is the recompetition as we approach the time period for the recompetition of the Antarctic support contract. The current support contract will expire in March of 2025. And with this contract being NSF's largest contract, total obligated amount of more than $2.3 billion, and a period of performance for more than 13 years, we certainly see the value of us being able to provide some independent oversight there as NSF transitions to the new contract. And then finally, IPA supervision of federal employees. With NSF's human capital management strategies, with using IPAs and or rotators, we became aware of a response by OPM to a June 2022 GAO report where guidance was issued regarding non-federal employees' ability to perform supervisory functions. So in FY24, we may conduct oversight work of NSF's compliance with OPM's revised guidance regarding non-federal employees' ability to perform supervisory functions. Next slide, please. So that concludes my high-level briefing of our audit plan. Once again, I appreciate your time and interest and support of our work. And we're always open to ideas that you have to suggest for us to consider in our planning process. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
How has your relationship with NSF been with regard to Antarctica?
Would you like me to start with that, Teresa?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I think we came to an agreement by all parties in the summer that it was time for our office to expand our investigative portfolio to start investigating allegations of sexual harassment and assault in particular in Antarctica. Sorry, sexual assault, not sexual harassment. That's OECR's domain. Let me be clear about that. Since then, we stood up a tiger team led by Megan Wallace, our Assistant Inspector General for Investigations, and Jim Altestad, who is the acting head of the Office of Polar Programs. And the purpose of this Tiger team is to pull all the various components that have a role to play in Antarctica and that are affected by our investigative activity together, so that we can, move forward and implement this as efficiently and effectively as possible. Those conversations continue. There are a host of issues that have to be addressed, and not the least of which is the proper mechanism for reporting allegations. And so I think there is a really positive dynamic of all of us sitting around a table and trying to work together to solve that problem. So I have no complaints. I would further note that the director supported our sending not one, but two teams to the ice this fall. So we had both our audit team that went to do the field work for the occupational safety and health work. But we also had a second team that consisted of Megan Wallace, our head of investigations, and Carrie Hartman, who is the person that we have hired. She came to us from the Department of State's Office of Diplomatic Security, and she has years of experience investigating sexual assaults in remote environments. So they went to the ice to do a security assessment and to engage in outreach with the people down there, all with the goal of helping to set us up to have a full austral summer presence on site at McMurdo next year. So I have no complaints for the support we're getting from NSF at this point. And
Excellent, thank you.
compliments.
Are there any questions from the committee? Roger.
Yes, thanks for the report. Teresa, I looked at, in looking through the documents that were presented, there are a lot of different, there's a lot of work planned in 24. And I'm wondering how often is a given subject, for example, audit of NSS award recipient compliance with research security requirements, how often is that question asked in an audit format, or any of the others? Are these quadrennial, or how often can we expect that these will be reviewed?
Thanks for the question. So on an annual basis, we have a very robust planning process by which we incorporate a lot of different inputs. We look at some of the work we've done in the past, and we consider whether, as far as timing, whether it's appropriate to readdress. The centers, for example, we last audited in 2007, I believe. So if enough time has passed that there's been more investment or more associated dollars, that may increase the risk and may land higher on our list for potential audits. So of the planned projects that were listed there outside of the statutorily mandated work, they're not necessarily every year, but we of course take into account timing, appropriateness, and risk.
So what role does sort of the results of a previous audit play in the frequency of a second audit or a follow-up audit?
If we conduct audit and we find significant issues, we are likely to either expand scope on that current job or initiate future work. We have to take into account the various factors and all of the different portfolios of work that we have to cover. So we don't necessarily always do the same topic, but if it's a high enough risk, we will consider expanding that work into a broader body of work.
No, thanks. I mean, we rely on you all to tell us if there's a problem someplace, and if you detect a problem, then how quickly do you follow up? So, because the risk, I mean, how to mitigate against that risk is what we're concerned about. So that's why the question. I don't know which of the programs have been problematic in the past. I can't recall those, Allison. My memory bank's not that good, and I'm just wondering about how we pursue when there is an issue. I know you do follow-ups, but then presumably behavior is is monitored more carefully, and it's not necessary to keep on reviewing the same program over and over. But that's why the question, Allison.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And what I would note is, as Teresa noted, sometimes what we do is build a body of work, like in the area of IPAs. Since I've been IT
Right.
here in 2009, we've done several IPA focused audits, but they were all differently focused. And we are currently monitoring the issue that Teresa highlighted, the changing guidance from OPM. So we keep an eye on these things through our audit work, but also through our development of the management challenges document. And I would just note that when we issue a report, we make recommendations and we follow up on the agency's actions to implement those recommendations. So we have a pretty long perspective from the start of audit work to the closure of once the recommendations are implemented. That gives us, a real clear view of what's happening, and we factor that into, our if things are if our action is taken quickly in response to our recommendations, the risk area might go down, and that issue might become more of a back burner issue, as opposed to other situations where recommendations are open longer or more difficult to be implemented, which would cause us to keep a more focus on that. So,
I appreciate the work on TIP, because that we know will be under scrutiny by Congress for a couple of years, but we also don't want to keep adding more and more bureaucracy on top of the NSF that comes with additional mandates from Congress. And how do we mitigate just simply exploding the portfolio of what we do while still carrying out our actions? And so that the frequency of audits becomes the question of how many can we just keep exploding with new auditors, or can we find a way to keep this under control in terms of how much money we spend on audit? That's important, but then Congress recognizes what their authority is. I'm wondering how much we can push back and still get the job done.
A fine question. I would just note that we do coordinate on an annual basis with the Government Accountability Office, which is another, source of audits of the foundation and its programs, to try to ensure that we aren't, all walking over, that auditors aren't falling over themselves,
Right.
Looking at the same issues. So we are sensitive to the impact that our work has.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else burning? Because we do have a last item, which will be presented by Janice Kaufman-Piester, who is NSF's Chief Financial Officer and Performance Improvement Officer. She'll provide a brief update to the Committee on Agency Finance and performance issues from the previous quarter. The written CFO report is available in the Diligent CO Board Book. Janice?
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to provide an update to some of the key activities that are led by our Office of Budget, Finance, and Award Management, or BFA, that I head up as the Chief Financial Officer. So hopefully you've had a chance to review the CFO update that I provided for the November full board meeting. So I wanted to focus on just a handful of activities that we have been continuing to undertake since that report. So first up, I think you're aware that our fiscal 2023 financial statement audit came to conclusion. So on November 15th, NSF received its 26th clean audit opinion, 26th in a row. And for the last 7 consecutive years, we've maintained no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So in plain language, through appropriate internal controls and accurate financial reporting, NSF has maintained strong stewardship over taxpayer funding. Our agency financial report, or AFR, for the fiscal year 2023 contained those financial statements, the OIG's independent audit findings, as well as highlights of our performance. We delivered that to Congress and posted that report on our website on the 15th. And this on-time submission and the financial statement audit outcome are the result of dedicated staff from across BFA and the Office of Information and Resource Management, who continually reassess processes. They're scanning for emerging risks, providing technical assistance to internal and external partners. And our teams do a lot of work to be responsive to the auditors and proactively address any issues raised. It's also the result of staff across NSF following prescribed procedures, flagging concerns, and working with us to make sure we're meeting NSF's mission. And importantly, it's also a reflection of the strong working relationship we have with our Office of Inspector General throughout the year. So on behalf of my staff, we're excited to work with Teresa Hull in her new role. And as Allison and Teresa noted, we really value their partnership and work with them as they're working through audits. As they have draft findings, for example, we may begin to start work to take corrective actions quickly so that we are closing those areas of risk as quickly as possible. Moving on to other activities, we in BFA continue to make progress on key procurement and cooperative agreement activities. So for example, last week we posted answers to industry questions related to our Antarctic Research Vessel Integrator contract. So we also posted a revised draft solicitation there. So there's some key milestones in our procurement process to keep us on track and according to our timeline for that project. Related to the Antarctic Science and Engineering Support Contract, we did put out a draft statement of work last September. Comments were due into us by the end of November, and we were very pleased to see a robust response and lots of interesting feedback. So this important and productive step will really help keep us on pace to release a full draft request for proposals sometime in Q2, so between January and March, hopefully, of the next calendar year. BFA has also been working closely with TIP on our Regional Innovation Engine Awards. We conduct the financial reviews and cost analysis for the Type 2 awards, and we are working on terms and conditions for those awards so that we are prepared when and we are readying to make those awards. And then lastly, NSF held its semi-annual grants conference from December 4th through the 7th. And this is where we provide outreach to the research community. We are able to highlight new programs and initiatives, support faculty, researchers, and administrators with their proposal preparation and the merit review process. And we provide information through directorate-specific sessions. So through the 16 conference sessions held this year, we had more than 5,800 attendees, which is on par with our previous virtual grants conferences. We're also planning our next grants conference for June 3rd through 5th, and this will actually be an on-site and hybrid, and will be in Philadelphia. So we are excited to continue our outreach to the community and have an in-person event after all this time after COVID. So with that, that's all the remarks I have. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Anything urgent from anybody? Because I've taken us over time.
Not urgent, but can you comment on the who are the participants in those meetings that you've had? More recently, Janice, I mean, in terms of HBCIs and underrepresented, can you break that down at all?
I don't have those data available to me, but I absolutely can. We've certainly saw a significant increase in emerging research institution participation and HBCUs when we're able to expand participation to virtual. So we're hoping to be able to continue that broad participation levels even when we do in-person events. But I'm happy to give you that information.
No, that's great. I'm just the trend upward is what I'm looking for. Thanks.
Yep.
Great reporting. Congratulations on year 26. Thank you all for your participation in this meeting. This is the last Committee on Oversight meeting of the year. Staff will send an email to CO members confirming our usual meeting time, the third Wednesday of the month at 10:30 Eastern, making sure that remains available for January through May of next year. If there are any topics you wish to raise for next year's CO agendas, please mention them now or send an email to me and Ann. The meeting is adjourned at 1:37. Thank you all very much. Great meeting.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
All right, stop our recording. And YouTube is stopped.
Thank you, Brandon.